In this episode of AVSocial, we have residential dealers who've made their way over to commercial, and we talk to them about the marketing and design differences between the two spaces and how they get to the heart of AV. All that and more on this episode's AVSocial.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVSocial, episode 38. Damn it, I have people skills.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Peerless AV, driving technology through innovation.
And by HD Base Tea.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of AVSocial. Today, I am here with my co-host, Dawn Mead, AV Dawn.
Hello.
And we are focusing on residential versus commercial marketing today. So, residential. Since the economic downturn 10 years ago, residential dealers have been looking for ways to expand their client base and recoup lost business. This year at InfoComm, the show featured an integrated life area that aimed at showing how the same AV can be used at home and in the office. On this episode of AVSocial, we'll look at how residential dealers who have gotten into commercial as well as market themselves to this new clientele. And we have some great guests on the show today. Dawn, would you like to introduce everyone?
I sure would. We're really honored today to have with us three guests, all of whom are owners of their companies. All of their companies do both resi and commercial, or resi-mercial, as all the magazines are using. And all three of them just happen to be CEDIA board members. So allegedly, they know what they're talking about. We're going to start out with the lovely Heather Sidorowitz, who is the owner of Southtown Audio Video up in New York. Say hello to everyone, Heather.
Hello, everyone.
Here we go. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of this group.
And we're excited to have you. Next, we have Joe Whitaker, who is the owner of The Thoughtful Home in the St. Louis area, not far from our fearless leader, Tim. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. And last, but by no means least, we have AVNation's own Matt Scott, who is also, when he's not running shows and running around AVNation like a crazy man, is the founder and owner of Omega Audio Video up in the Great White North of Canada. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Hey, friends. How you guys doing?
Very good. Thanks for coming on our show today.
Always.
So let's get started with a kind of simple question. All three of your companies do both residential and commercial. Some of you took it from the commercial side and shifted to residential, while the others were resi companies, first and foremost, and sort of got into commercial as time went on. What led you and your business to look into the opposite pool as an area of expansion? Let's start with Heather.
I will give you a threefold reason. Reason number one is lately in Buffalo, New York, there's been a renaissance, major growth. So we have a medical corridor expanding downtown, so could kind of see this growth in Buffalo. Number two reason was young kids. So didn't want to work retail hours. It just doesn't work together when you're trying to, be a lady and do it all. And number three was this growth opportunity. So what we realized and maybe underestimated was how much the commercial market was craving the attention and the client relationship that residential, I think, has become really good at. So the AV contractors and the commercial side were more like electricians, in and out, not a lot of love, and we were able to provide that, and really we doubled our business.
That's a great point. Coming from the purely commercial side, I've seen that in action, unfortunately. Joe, how about you? What took the Thoughtful Home to become, I guess, the Thoughtful Office in some cases?
A ton of things. I mean, the first time we experimented with that was in another branding back when the housing market took a turn. And those few companies from back then that really did stay alive started getting into a lot of commercial because it was pretty recession proof. Now we look at it a little differently than we started because we have the Thoughtful Restaurant, which is our technology for the hospitality environment. But what brought us there was actually looking at it because, I mean, no offense to any commercial integrators out there at all. We look at something that's kind of like a resimercial, but we call it resitality, because we understand how to create lifestyle environments. And it's coming to the point where we see a lot of boutique restaurants, famous chefs opening restaurants and bars, where it's an extension of their kitchen, it's an extension of their dining room, it's an extension of their living space. So they're inviting you into their living space. And that branding and that thought process has made a huge boom of success for us, both in here and our offices in Dallas, where in either locations, I mean, if you're a well-known or famous chef, we're kind of your tech provider. And that goes the same into, offices and other spaces where kind of that living environment plays in, is we're not providing the junk you see around when you walk down the strip in Las Vegas and you're like, oh my God, this crap is so ugly. You just destroyed a design. So that's kind of the thought process that we take.
Okay, great.
I would describe that as enhancing technology where you work, live, and play.
Yes.
The thoughtful world. The thoughtful world.
TM. Not yet. But
5 minutes.
Matt, how about you? I understand you sort of flipped it there. You started in the commercial world and went to residential. What took you there, my friend?
The downturn of the U.S. economy. No, that really
Canada.
I know, but we had a lot of clients in the U.S. When Omega started, we were primarily a house of worship company, and that was really the vertical that we focused on. And when the U.S. economy had its downturn, that business all but evaporated overnight. That's what spurned us into residential. And we started doing a lot of residential and bringing some of the, thought processes that we had in house of worship into the residential space, which wasn't as common at the time locally for us. Then we expanded and got back into commercial and again, house of worship and meeting spaces and things such as that. And the biggest thing that I've noticed, having kind of done all three phases of this, is that there are a lot of really good parts of all three, verticals or channels, however you want to look at it. And we were able to cherry pick those really good parts and put them all into kind of our go-to-market strategy and make sure that we can focus on, those things. And Heather and Joe hit it really well with there's a lot to the personal touch that residential has that commercial as a rule does not. And, we were able to pull that. We were able to pull the design thinking approach that comes with doing house of worship and not just focusing on, PA or video systems, but having to, do that entire thing and keep in mind the aesthetics of how the stage looks and how you light a stage and translate that again into residential and then subsequently into commercial. There's a lot of really good features of all three of those channels. And, when you put them all together and bring them together as one, you can create a really dynamic product.
That's interesting. So all three of you kind of indicated this. Matt, you sort of summed it up nicely there, but key differentiation in the markets. Just in my career, we've seen the shift from you took the cool tech you had at work and demanded it at home to flip the script where now we demand the cool tech that we have at home in our office, where before it was look at the big TV, I want it in my house. Now it's look, I can just go like this and put it up on the screen at my house. Why can't I use that swipe technology in the office? So, personal touch, that's one. Do you see any other key differentiators that really give you resimercial integrators an advantage over the traditional commercial? Matt, go ahead.
If I can jump on that, probably, everything we spoke of are all really good points, but the key differentiation point that I see when I look at these two different markets is that residential, since its inception, has always had to deal with design. We've always had to focus on how technology blends in with the space, how it works with the space. And so often in commercial, you walk into a boardroom and it's just, we're throwing TVs on the wall here, we're putting VC over there, we're doing this up here. And the design does not usually, there's an AV design, but you're very rarely dealing with, a high-end interior designer or someone who is focused on finishes where you have to make that collaboration to make that space happen. Residential integrators, as a rule, are fairly well versed in that. So they can come in and look at a boardroom that has a design, has an aesthetic, and say, yeah, we can figure out how to do this. We can do, 3 panels on the wall that are framed nicely so that they blend with the woodwork throughout, opposed to, we're just going to hang it on the wall. And it doesn't matter if it comes into the space 1.5 feet, because we need space for all our gear. There's just a different design focus a lot of times that residential integrators deal with and are well versed in, that a lot of times commercial integrators are not. That is changing, but it's not there yet.
And to take that a step further, not just design, but solution-based. I think as residential, we were more used to interviewing our clients to really figure out what system was right for them. So it wasn't, here's our conference room system, but what do you really want to do in this room? Do you do video conferencing? Will you ever do video conferencing? What's out there? And we could approach it not from I make all my money because I'm going to get you into this brand, which is going to have this reoccurring revenue for me. But we can kind of approach it from that more creative standpoint of, for what you do, web-based conferencing might be perfect. And, here's the pros and cons of that. So I think that we just kind of have a creative, because we've been being creative for years and years. So I think that, yes, design for sure, and then solution-based. And again, not all are created equal. There's always been great commercial companies out there as well, but I think it just kind of can give us an edge from time to time.
I couldn't agree on both of those things, but there's one bigger thing that I've learned over the years is our models. The way a residential company primarily works is we have people skills. It's not just, sure, we're good at sending paperwork to a specifier, which is kind of that commercial model. Here's the specifications, fill in the blanks, send it back to us. No. When I get those, I say, okay, this is great. Let me talk to your CTO, your CFO, your CEO, your president. Let me see what he wants and what his wishes are, not this laundry list of equipment. And I feel that is very different in the mechanism of the way some of these projects are pushed out, is we know how to talk to people. We know how to get in their heads, get out their wants, needs, wishes, weed through all the junk, and actually be able to come up with an amazing project. It's a little bit of a different business mechanism.
Interesting. One thing I'm kind of hearing, and it's kind of ironic since all 3 of you are board members for CEDIA, is that what you're indicating.
We are not speaking on behalf of the board. These are our individual opinions. The legal disclaimer will be listed on the site at the end. Thank you very much.
But all 3 of you indicated in your talking about key differentiation that what it boils down to is you're about the design, about the needs of the customer, the communication with the customer. So in short, you guys are saying that the residential dealers have more of an interest in creating a good experience for the customers, which
the good ones. You want everybody. Everyone should be doing that.
That's right.
And Heather, that's the key point. It's not everyone. Don't misunderstand. And just like we're not trying to paint the commercial AV industry with a bad brush. There are fantastic integrators out there. There are also a lot of terrible integrators out there. The CEDIA channel is the identical way. It's just that a lot of times there are different approaches, whether it's the way we deal with people in person, the way we market to people. There are some differences that you will see as a rule, one channel to the other.
Can you list some of those of how you would approach a commercial customer versus a residential customer? Just some top line type stuff.
I don't.
You don't approach customers?
No, I don't approach them any differently, because everything that we've learned over the years, as operating in the residential space, is that it doesn't matter who the customer is. If he's the CEO of Delta Airlines, or he's some guy getting a $5,000 system, it doesn't matter. We approach them all the same way, with trying to figure out their wants and their needs, how we can provide the absolute best experience at the absolute best rates, and being able to transition that into a complete project. I mean, that is across the board the way we do it. And maybe that's why, you're also starting to see people in the commercial market starting to transition in the residential market is they figured out a way to make what they do transition, which may make an easier sales process where, and the way they do things mechanically. So it's a two-way street. It's happening on both ends. Everyone's exploring new markets, and it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Yeah, that's a huge point. And it's not so much that the approach differs. It's that when you look at the traditional approach of a commercial integrator, who often will walk into a space and have their list of, so do you do VC? Check. Do you do this? Check. Do you do this? Check. Okay, we're going to put some microphones on the table, microphones in the ceiling. We'll do this and we'll do this. The normal or the average successful residential dealer walks in and has the conversation. It's not a list. It's not this checklist that you go through as you're doing a scope meeting. It's the way in which you approach it to walk in and really have that lifestyle conversation of, what do you want to do here? Just because you work in, an office doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. And probably one of the best examples I can put to this is somebody posted something on Twitter just the other day about that living room VC concept of having these huddly spaces with low couches, which means all the equipment needs to be lower.
Which is so popular now.
It's incredibly popular. It's casual workspaces.
Companies changing over to these spaces, which we fit right into.
Yeah, but I watched one of the fairly well-known or very vocal commercial AV people who read that, and all they saw from it was, hold on, we're putting VC in living rooms? That's silly. It's like, no. There's a whole design aesthetic approach that comes to this. There's a whole understanding how your clients want to live their life, even when they're at work, and translating that into a scope discussion, but not so rigid in the, here's my checklist, let me bring my clipboard and we'll just mark it off. And how many rooms would you like? 14? Okay. There's a lot more to the approach and the personal touch that goes into this anymore.
Kelly, I would sum it up with, it's just human-centric. We're just being more maybe human-centric versus robot-y. And any commercial client or commercial AV company could absolutely do that as well. I've seen a national company do a job. They built their website, and it's my dream website. And they built it around being human-centric. I don't know how much that actually plays tangibly, but it's about, like, we're back to relationship again. Mm-hmm. We're back to how to make life better in the places you work, live, or play. So I think that the approach is similar, whether it's residential or commercial. Did that answer your question?
Kind of. And maybe it's just because I'm not super familiar with the residential market, but I mean, there has to be different strategies and tactics to, I mean, it's kind of like business to consumer versus business to business, isn't it? A little bit?
Not exactly, because you've got to think about, for one, on commercial and even residential, right? You walk in with whether it's a clipboard or it's in your head, you walk in with the process of product categories, right? You've got displays, you got video distribution, you got audio distribution, you got, all these things. Both of them want the same things. It's all about, talking about it and getting that concept out. Whether they want a big TV, a projector, or use cases, I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't matter. It's how you utilize technology in a space, and whether you're working or playing, it's all about how you utilize technology in the same space. There should be zero difference.
Now, the only place where you can see difference is in the marketing aspect of it, because you can tailor specific things.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, just how do you get to these people? Not so much what you do when you get there. I get that piece, the relationship pieces, but how do you find these people, or how do you find them, like you said, Matt, in the marketing space?
The marketing space gets tougher because you obviously have to focus on who you're trying to go after. So if you're trying to go after that, IoT smart home client, the way you market to them is completely different than the way you market to someone who wants an integrated house where everything's connected and connected at a high level. As far as like the actual pieces, the way you differentiate that client. In commercial, the hardest thing, at least for us when we market to commercial, is that if we put too much of a residential spin on it, as far as, again, not product, but just that lifestyle piece, if we put too much of a residential spin on it, oftentimes the commercial clients will disregard us because, we must not know what we're talking about, because they're so used to getting the same thing and the same type of marketing from commercial. When we're trying to go after that commercial design centric model, it comes down to, again, just marketing specifically to that channel and going after companies that we have an idea are going to play in that space. So,
well, you got to hit them in the heart,
exactly.
And you got to hit them in the heart. With residential, it's fear and laughter, and with commercial, it's budget and timeline. I mean, if you just stick to those two things on both sides, you're going to succeed. That's the entire reason why we created separate brands specific to each one of these categories. Okay. But at the end of the day, brand is culture. And if it doesn't matter if you're commercial or residential, if you have a culture of quality technology and a human characteristic to speak to a client, you win. Game over. And that's kind of why you're starting to see a lot of this cross going between the AVSocial side and the CEDIA side. Is we both can provide great experiences, but what is the end result? And that's kind of where it falls into those categories.
So and sorry to go off tangent a little bit here. And I'm just curious on all this stuff. So like, do you guys find it difficult to deal with kind of the residential versus the commercial folks with manufacturers?
No.
Okay. I just like,
well, not for Canada is different.
Are you dealing with different folks? Are you dealing
a little bit? I mean, okay. Joe, you can chime in after that too. But there's some like secret sauces of all that. So like ADI, who's really a security first company, but through meeting the right people through that, they've become my secret of success, because they'll do things like warehouse everything until we're ready to install it. So if it's 5 80-inch sharp TVs, then if I'm not picking those up, I don't have to pay for that many days longer. So that allows me to grow. That it helps with cash flow, which I think is probably the biggest danger of a residential company becoming a commercial company. Is number one is you've got to run your company like a tight ship, right? So it has to be, because cash flow is the big scary monster of being commercial, because now you're not getting deposits for most places, depending on who your clients are, and your terms can be 45 to 90 days out. You have to be able to survive that. And I'm just going to touch back on the last point, putting money where their mouth is. We closed our doors to retail a few months ago. That I did an article on that, and it was interesting how many people came up to me at this past CEDIA to comment on that, like, "Oh, I read that article, and I really think you did the right thing." But we didn't get out of our space. We're still here, and we're redesigning that space into a experience center, an innovation center. It can be a training room. It can be used and rented to kind of show, right, put our money where our mouth is. So if you can't maybe afford at this point, because you're a small company or a medium company, a $50,000 AV system in your plate, you then rent ours. And then the goal is, once you understand and see the simplicity of that, then maybe you'll say, great, I want that eventually. Or maybe you'll do 4 meetings a year. So it's really kind of a creative and had to think outside the box to put that forth. And we can meet again at InfoComm, and I'm either going to cry or tell you this is going really well.
For us sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
For us being Canadian, we have a different distribution model than most of the U.S. does.
Really?
Really, it's true. So for us, yes, that is one of the biggest challenges in doing both residential and commercial, is that we actually double our supplier list, because there are very few vendors that give us a large swath of commercial products and a large swath of residential products. We do have some crossover, but on a weekly basis, I probably deal with 10 to 15 different suppliers, because that's who we have to deal with to get, 1 or 2 projects done, especially if we're working in different veins. It's the way it is.
Here in the U.S., isn't that bad because, Heather gave a great example with ADI. Now, the warehousing thing is one of the great benefits, but, that's one of those where in residential, we might get Sony TVs, but on commercial, we're getting, JBL controls and Crown amplifiers. And then we have another vendor that we get certain residential products. But on the commercial side, we're getting QSC, Bosch Pro. So they do kind of intermix. And we have the same rep. We've talked to the exact same guy. And I've been known to call in and place a multi-SKU order for both residential and commercial stuff at the exact same time. I'm like, send this here, send that there, send this here. I want it all at one time. So for us, all the way down to microphone, Sennheiser and Shure and everything else, it blends pretty seamlessly. And if you know product, you know product. If you know 70 volt, you know 70 volt. It's like, it's pretty universal at this point. And it's one of those on either side. It doesn't matter which side you're on. Exploring the other side is not a bad thing as long as you're making a good business model behind it so that you don't fail.
Yeah, it really does sound like when you do combine them and you're able to successfully, you've got the best of both worlds.
The only thing you can't combine is what I got out of over a year ago and what Heather got out of is retail. You know what? Leave. If you're listening, leave.
Amen.
Get out while you can.
Do a lot of integrators though have retail shops? I mean, I just coming strictly from the commercial side in my history, I've never worked for a place that had them. We would send people up the street to ADI when they needed just to pick up a retail thing.
Some people still do. Some people still do. It's not as popular as it used to be. There's a handful I can name around the nation off the top of my head, but
there's CEDIA does that in their size and scope, don't they? I think they actually have some numbers. I feel like it's still a higher number. Like
it's a higher number.
50%, isn't it?
It's up there.
Close to.
The really interesting side of it is that I think I can count on one hand the number of times a commercial vendor or manufacturer has come up to me and demanded that I had some sort of retail or showroom experience. Whereas in residential, I get asked at least 60 to 70% of the time if I have
and sometimes it's mandatory and sometimes it's mandatory.
And I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday who's in a slightly different vertical, more musical instrument based, and he had a large company that would not sell to him because he does not have brick and mortar. And it's one of those, it's something you can buy anywhere.
Right.
But they would not give him in his CI channel, essentially, a dealership because he did not have a brick and mortar. And I can name, which I won't, but I can name a bunch of manufacturers in the residential realm who will not give you anything. And again, half of their product is widely available online, but you can't have it unless you're brick and mortar.
Why?
Right.
No idea. It's $19.99, it seems.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I would like, since you have some in here on AVNation, I would love, as a CEDIA board member, to find those numbers and maybe put those in the show notes for folks that are watching this if they are interested in those numbers. That'd be very interesting. I think that we've pretty well covered this. So you guys gave us marketing tips. You gave us key differentiators. We covered all of our prepared questions plus more. Let's just kind of do a last word. We'll start with Joe. Hey, what's your last word on the thought of resi-commercial and combining these worlds?
So my last thought is, don't be afraid to step in the door. A great place to start is, the restaurant clientele, hotels. Don't be afraid to go in there and actually talk to them and see what their needs are. And if you're out there and you see something ugly, tell them, I know somebody that could do that better. Here's a cart. Don't be afraid to do that. We do that all the time. And it works. So, don't fear that change. If you really do feel you could offer something better, do it.
Great. Heather, how about your final word on the topic?
Know your niche and play within it. So you really have to know what you want to go after. So you can say, it's not going to be the TVs, although, they're the prettiest part with not a great margin, right? But so you got to know what your niche is. So it's residential, immersive technology, corporate, educational. Where do you want to play and be the invest at that space. Make sure your business is put together, it's rock solid before you play in that space. And then, yeah, I agree with Joe. Knock on the door, get in there, and you never know what your possibilities might be.
Excellent. Matt, any final thought from you?
Know your limits. That's the one issue I have with Resi-mercial, is too often people on both sides, and it doesn't matter what channel you're in or where you play. Know your limits, so that you're not doing your customers a disservice.
Yeah, there's nothing more painful than losing a job and then seeing the other proposal that's like, this is a DJ system.
Just ridiculous. Yeah, play with. It's like gambling. Play within your limits. Know where you're at.
Don't compromise yourself, right? When you know, just lose the job because they'll come back.
Yeah, so know your limits and walk away.
Don't be scared to not stay in your lane, but know your limits.
Yeah,
that's what we're here. All right, great. Well, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know myself, having only played in the commercial market, I learned a lot during this chat today. I want to thank Joe and Heather and Matt all for coming on the show today. Joe, let's start with you. Where can people find you, in person, on the internets, anything like that?
Any CEDIA event, you know you're going to find me there on the good old internet. So you can find me at The Thoughtful Home on Facebook, at Thoughtful Home on Twitter, and anything CEDIA related.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on. Heather, how about you? Where can folks find you in the real world and in the virtual world?
Well, here in Buffalo, New York, you can, look me up, Southtown Audio Video. Socially, I'm probably most active on Twitter, which is tech_chi, CHI, not by my name. So it's kind of a fun alter ego. You'll actually hear exactly what I'm thinking, right, Matt?
No, not at all. You're very veiled online.
And yeah, on the CEDIA world too. Probably not as much as Mr. Whitaker, but I try to be out there.
Outstanding. Thank you. And Matt, of course, where can folks find you other than Canada?
Yeah, you can find I'm the entire country. But you can find me pretty much anywhere. Follow me on Twitter, Matt D. Scott, and every other social platform. You can find me on AVNation as the host of Resi Week. You can find me at CEDIA. You'll find me at Infocom and AVIXA. I'm everywhere. And you're everywhere to me, so.
Oh, heart. Thanks, Matt. Thank all three of you for a really good day today. Oh, I can't forget my lovely co-host, Kelly. Where can we find you online?
LinkedIn, Twitter at NSCA_Kelly, or the NSCA Foundation, the Ignite Initiative specifically. But yeah, I want to thank all you guys. This was a cool show. It was, again, kind of coming from the commercial side, in both manufacturing and integration. It's cool to learn new stuff. So thanks for today.
Yeah, absolutely. I really legitimately did learn a lot today, and I really appreciate having all of you on here. My name is Dawn Mead. You'll find me here on AVNation, hosting AVSocial, and apparently, occasionally appearing on AV Week or some other shows. You can find me on Twitter and other social places as @AVDawn. And I also work as an end user now, not as a commercial integrator any longer. So look for me there, look for me anywhere, and I'm usually at Infocom the show, sponsored by AVIXA the organization. So thanks for coming. We hope you all enjoyed this episode of AVSocial. Bye-bye.